afternoon. My name is Dwayne and we are at Emigh Hardware in the Arden Arcade neighborhood of beautiful Sacramento, California. And today's topic is going to be potted arrangements that are meant to be displayed together. So we are working with 3 pots that are chosen to look complementary with each other. And the plants that I'm going to be putting in these 3 pots are going to be for a mostly sun area. And I also have another arrangement that I did that is for a shady area that you can see a little bit later. So I'm getting started on this larger size pot for this grouping, and I've already started filling in some soil and getting ready to begin to put my plants in here. And the soil we are using today is going to be EB Stone's Edna's Best, and I've been using it for about 7 months now, and I've really enjoyed the texture and the results that I'm getting with my plants. So that is the product we're using today. So the plants that are going in this pot, I have an autumn sage, and this one is Hot Lips. I have a lamandra grass. This one is called Lime Tuff. I've got Gerbera daisy. I got some calibrachoa. I've got a salmon flowered geranium, and I've got some marigolds and some paludosum daisy to go in this pot. Now I've chosen a lot of things, and not necessarily everything is going to get into this pot. I like having this palette to work with because it gives me some choices as I start running out of spaces. So yeah, we're just gonna be adding more soil and packing it in around the plants, making sure there's no air voids around the roots, and filling up as we go along. So I've got the soil up to about the right level for the plant, and I'm testing it right now, and I know that the soil is going to settle a little bit over time, so I do like bringing it up fairly close to the top of the rim, usually within an inch is kind of my sweet spot. And this one has a little bit of a gap at the bottom here that I want to make sure is filled in, and I'm just giving a little bit of a twist to make sure it settles in there and getting rid of any air gap that could be underneath that root ball. I'm going to be adding some more soil, and then we'll be adding more plants. So the next plant I'm going to put in is this ornamental grass, which I said was the lamandra. And the reason I chose this as the next plant is it's also in the largest container size out of everything that's going in there, because I go from largest containers to smallest containers as I'm doing these planted arrangements. So in this one I have some roots that are kind of growing around a little bit, so I'm going to do a little bit of trim, and my cutting tools are clean. I sanitized them earlier. Pull out any weeds that might be growing. Okay, my level's just a touch low, but not too bad. There we go. So that's my next plant in this arrangement. I need more soil. Okay, so now I'm going to be, again, packing my soil in around my plants. Make sure there's no air gaps. Pack it down a little bit. And if you've seen me before in the succulent video, I do like to use a stick when I get in here at this phase so that I can get it to pack in pretty well. You don't want it packed super hard, but you do want it fairly firm, and that does a nice job of getting it settled in. So I'm going to check the height on the next plant I'm going to do, which is probably going to be the geranium, and it looks like I'm just right about there. So let's give it a try, remove it from the container. So I'm giving it a squeeze on both sides and pushing the bottom a little bit, and voila, it pops out. So I do want to do a little bit of root trimming on this one as well. Okay, and that's all ready to go in there, and you can see on this one there is a little indent, so I will want to make sure that the soil is up against that. So having my soil roughed up in my pot a little bit will allow that to settle in when I give it a little twist to be in its new home. So I'm ready to add a little bit more soil. Okay, I think I'm ready for another item, which I think I'm going to do again, a larger item, and this one's going to be my Gerbera daisy. Okay, so you saw in the last two plants that there was a lot of roots wrapping around it. This one's barely grown in, so I'm not going to be doing any root trimming on this one. I'm going to just call it good and just insert it into the pot. And the height was good. Okay, so I'm ready for my next plant, which is going to be that Calibrachoa, which is going to cascade over the side of the pot, which I want some of that action going on in this arrangement. Again, I don't need to trim the roots on this one. They're not wrapping around too much, and I don't want to disturb it too much. Okay, I think I'm ready to test my depth. And it really looks like it's pretty perfect. So I'm going to start plugging in some plants that go in this area here. Okay, and then these are really quite root bound, so I do a fair amount of pruning on these. So that should be ready to go in there now. Add a little bit more soil in this area. And this is where it can get a little bit slow and tedious, is trying to get those air gaps filled in. So some people ask me why I do the root trim versus pulling the root balls apart. I don't want to do that much damage to these fine roots because I don't want to break their vascular tissue. All I want it to do is to get rid of that wraparound growth habit, and cutting it back will encourage some more side branching on those roots. So I know you've heard me mention before on pots, the next thing that is really important is time. These will need a few weeks to grow in together to fill out and look fuller. I do tend to pack the containers with a lot of plants. I gave these two a little bit more space because they are going to grow to be quite a bit larger. The other ones will fill in nicely, and they'll begin to spill over the front of the pot as well. The other advantage with planting higher to the rim of the pot is that the arrangements will look fuller sooner. And like I mentioned before, over time, the potting soil is going to lose its volume, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One of them is physically the air spaces. The soil settles down into those air spaces that are throughout this whole volume of pottery. The other thing is that microbes that are living in the soil are going to begin to eat that organic material in here, and as they eat that material, they're respiring, and so some of that organic material that's in the soil ends up being released to the atmosphere as carbon dioxide as they're respiring and living their life processes. So this pot is done other than watering. So now we have 2 of the 3 for this collection completed. Now we're going to start on the 3rd pot in the arrangement, and this one is going to be the medium-sized pot. And again, I have my palette of plants that are supposed to go into this pot, but I have chosen too many, so not necessarily all of them are going to go into there, but I like having choices. So I'm going to start with my screen to cover the drain hole in the bottom, and we're going to start filling it with soil to the level of my 2 deepest containers. so these are the two sets of arrangements that I did that are meant to be displayed together. So this is my shady location display, and this I chose as a suite of pots. So all of the pots are of the same design and series and glaze, and so they match. And then I chose plants that were meant to look good together with this glaze on this pot. Some of the plants that are in here, I have a Japanese maple that's beginning to come out of dormancy. I've got a button fern, I've got some hyacinths, I have some stalks, some primrose, bacopa, pincushion flower, candy tuft. One of my favorites, the old-fashioned calla lily, and even spider plant. I like the texture and the brightness, and I've had good results with spider plant growing outside. Another thing that I have in here, because they would like the same soil, the same watering, the same exposure, I have edible strawberries planted in here as well. For this potted arrangement set, I chose different pots that are complementary, that were meant to look good together. So you can see that I have some complementary greens. I have a complementary terracotta color between those, and so this arrangement's to go into a more sunny area. And these pots, with their sizes, their shapes, and their colors, are meant to look good together, even though they're not a suite of pots. Thank you for spending your time on this topic of doing potted arrangements. And if you have more questions, please come on down to Emigh Ace Hardware, and we're happy to help you. Thank you.